That was Donald Trump in Long Island, holding his first rally since he escaped a second assassination attempt just earlier this week. So does Trump feel safe? After taping Gutfeld earlier today, Trump stopped by a Bitcoin bar on the Lower East Side. Watch.
Do you feel safe, Mr. President? Are you looking at any private security in addition?
I feel very safe. They have the top-of-the-line people. They needed more people, and now they have them. They've been given that. And I guess it's presidential level. And based on the poll numbers, I guess you have to do that. We're leading in just about every poll. And we have to be safe, but we really have to be safe for the country. That's the most important thing to me. We have to be safe for the country. A lot of progress is going to be made. It's going to be made fast.
But tonight, we still don't know why the Secret Service keeps getting caught flat-footed by crazed gunmen. Why were there two close calls back-to-back? Why are Trump's perimeters so vulnerable? The Biden-Harris administration stonewalling.
From my personal standpoint, I want more information about what happened in Florida last weekend. I think the Secret Service owes an explanation to the American people, not just to a task force confidentially or under the classified setting, but to the American people, an explanation of what happened.
The Biden-Harris administration won't talk. And the FBI, who wiretapped the Trump campaign and raided his house, they're in charge of the investigation.
The men and women of the FBI are working tirelessly to get to the bottom of what happened. Our work is very much ongoing, and we're just a few days into the investigation, so we're limited in what we can say. At this point, what I can say is that we have dedicated the full force of the FBI to this investigation.
This is the same FBI director who was a Trump assassination truther. Remember, he said at first that Trump wasn't even shot?
I think with respect to former President Trump, there's some question about whether or not it's a bullet or shrapnel that hit his ear.
How do you trust a guy like this? This is the guy that had Hunter's laptop for a year and then said it was Russia disinformation to get it censored. And this just breaking. Christopher Wray just announced the Iranians have hacked the Trump campaign and sent the Biden-Harris campaign the goods. The FBI director wanted to be clear that the Biden-Harris people didn't ask for it, but they may have used the information they got. So Democrats received hacked material from our enemies and may have used it to win an election? America's enemies are interfering in our election on behalf of the Democrats, and the FBI isn't stopping them. Imagine if the Russians hacked the Harris campaign and emailed it to Trump. What do you think the FBI would do then? But they'll definitely get to the bottom of the two Trump assassination attempts, especially the last one, where the assassin was flagged to the FBI and they did nothing. Yesterday morning, the FBI raided the assassin's Hawaii bungalow. A 7-hour search, not as long as Mar-a-Lago. Photos obtained by the New York Post show Ruth's house was as disorganized as Biden's garage. This guy had boxes of power tools stacked up in his living room, his pickup truck littered with parking tickets, screwdrivers, little ketchup packets. Agents were seen leaving his home with boxes of evidence. What's inside? Well, they haven't told us. They probably never will. This is probably a mop-up job. We'll only know what they want us to know. This lunatic ex-con with only $68 to his name flew all over the world for 4 years to some of the most suspicious places. And the Biden administration was alerted to him and never took action. Ruth wasn't just flying from North Carolina to Hawaii to Florida to D.C. Ruth spent 2 weeks in Taiwan. He went to Turkey, Poland, and then Ukraine. He went to Ukraine twice, spent 8 whole months there. People who knew him say Ruth was holed up at Ukrainian military bases and barracks. Who did he meet in Ukraine? It's only ground zero for foreign intelligence operatives, black market military contractors, and mobsters. The assassin was recruiting soldiers from Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria. Ruth was in a war zone, communicating with foreign mercenaries from countries on the terror watch list, then flies back to America and tries to kill the president. And no one's asking who put him up to it. Time magazine says Ruth was also telling Ukrainian officials that he could have the Secret Service vet the military records of the soldiers he wanted to recruit. It's probably just a coincidence. But you're telling us that a convicted felon was sleeping in Ukrainian barracks for months, recruiting Middle Eastern soldiers, trafficking in drones, and flying back to America, and the Biden administration wasn't monitoring him at all? This guy's rubbing elbows with cold-blooded killers, then suddenly publishes a book about assassinating Trump. A former nurse who served in Ukraine told Primetime yesterday that she met Ruth there and immediately reported him to the FBI. Did he ever talk about assassinations?
All the time. He wanted to kill most world leaders. It's been over 2 years since I was with him, but I definitely remember he always talked about wanting to kill Putin, Kim Jong-un. He developed plans. He talked about Biden and Trump, but I can't remember. It's been over 2 years since I heard those conversations. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he did speak frequently about harming world leaders.
When Ruth flew back to Hawaii, Customs notified Homeland Security about him, but Mayorkas dropped the investigation. And the next thing you know, this guy brings a scoped rifle within 300 yards of the candidate who wants to end the war in Ukraine. Ruth was reported to the State Department, the FBI, the CIA, and Homeland Security, and they didn't stop him. Why? Ruth was seen running around like he was above the law for years. A former North Carolina police officer had over 100 interactions with him and said he was untouchable.
Mr. Ruth's attitude was, that he was above everybody. He could do what he wanted. It didn't matter. He was pretty entitled because of his flagrant above the law mentality. The fact that he felt he could do anything. He ran his mouth quite a bit about how he can get off.
Ruth's been hit with over 100 criminal counts just in North Carolina alone and never served a day in prison. Think about that. Even for the weapons of mass destruction charge, when he was in an armed standoff with cops with a machine gun, got probation. The same North Carolina police officer said the court would sometimes just dismiss or drop charges just, to clear the docket. Gun felonies, stolen vehicles, drugs, hit and runs, forged checks, never served time. Who's been keeping Ruth out of trouble? Even with his latest arrest for staking out Trump for assassination, he's only been charged with 2 minor gun crimes with no mandatory minimum. This so-called roofer had a car with stolen plates and a rifle with a scratched-off serial number. And this guy was sophisticated enough to plead the fifth and ask for a lawyer? Who was Ryan Ruth's father? We'll be looking into that at a later date. We're also looking into his ex-wife and fiancé. A shocking number of Democrats wish Ruth had completed his mission. New polling says 28% of Democrats think America would be better off if Trump was assassinated. 28%. 24%, not really sure. So that means a majority of Democrats think the country would be better off if Trump were murdered, or just need more time to think about it.
For years, Americans have heard Democrats call Trump a threat to democracy. Are you surprised now that 2 people have tried to kill him?
Trump has called us communists. He said we are a threat to the United States of America.
Trump almost got shot twice, Democrats shrug. Listen to what one caller told C-SPAN today.
See, we let this man Trump destroy America. And I look at it and say, well, these 2 people had to step up and take that shot. I'm 83, nothing to lose.
I'm sorry, Willie, you're not advocating violence, are you?
Not violence. I'm talking about defending my country.
All right.
See, assassination, really not violence if you're defending the country. You see? Tell me again, Democrats aren't happy bullets are flying? Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.